Live from New Delhi, watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour. End of shutdown in sight as Senate advances the bill after 40 days of stalemate. Bill to fund government through January 2026 and includes 3 appropriations measures. In a major breakthrough under anti-terror operation, J&K and Haryana police recover suspected explosives, arms in a joint operation. India-Angola pledged to deepen bilateral ties, agree on cooperation in marine resources. President Murmu to address Parliament and also interact with the Indian community. COP30 begins in Brazil's Belém on Monday with focus on turning climate talk into measurable action. Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav represents India. And in sports, shooter Anish Bhanwala creates history, becomes first Indian to ever win a medal in men's 25-meter rapid-fire event at World Championships with a silver in the finals. In a breakthrough, the US Senate advanced a funding bill after weeks of gridlock between the Democrats and the Republicans. This came as the first step towards ending the 40-day US government shutdown, the longest in history. In a procedural vote, senators advanced a House-passed bill that will be amended to fund the government until January 30th and include a package of 3 full-year appropriations bills. If the Senate eventually passes the amended bill, the package still must be approved by the House of Representatives and sent to President Donald Trump for his signature. Under a deal struck with a group of Democrats, Republicans agreed to a vote in December on extending subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. The deal was brokered by 2 New Hampshire Democrat senators, and Maggie Hassan and Jean Shaheen, and Angus King, an independent from Maine, the person said. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the chamber's top Democrat, voted against the measure. All right, DD India's Jessica Taneja has been tracking this story. She joins us live from the newsroom. Hi, Jessica. End of shutdown in sight as Senate advances the bill. Tell us, how significant is this step in terms of actually ending the shutdown, and also what does shutdown mean for federal employees who are furloughed or working without pay?
Well, there have been hundreds and thousands of furloughed workers who were waiting for this news as to what kind of agreement, bipartisan agreement that the senators would come to. And on Sunday, after that crucial vote, after overcoming the filibuster that was preventing that vote of agreement, it will, of course, as your report also pointed out, that it will be again voted in the House, and it needs to get that approval. But with this initial agreement, there is a certain sigh of relief, but also factionalism within the Democrats who are not in agreement with the 8 Democrats that have agreed to offer that support to the Republicans. And this certainly has been expressed by not just the Senate Minority Leader, but also other Democrats like Elizabeth Warren, who has said that this would certainly undermine the Democrats' demands of extension of subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. And as health insurance costs are going up, it is becoming increasingly difficult for Americans to continue on this path where the government has been shut down for the longest it has been in the history of this country. And that continues to pressure not just federal agencies, but also other departments which are facing continued pushback and also delay of flights, and the common people that are getting affected by it every day. And when you talk about furloughed workers, in 2019, a law was passed which would ensure their back pay in case the US government shuts down. So a lot of considerations are being put in place. But when it comes to this agreement, the Republicans have not even promised a vote on extension of those subsidies of the Affordable Care Act, which was the key demand of the Democrats. But at the same time, the Democrats have still caved, especially those 8 Democrats who said that not having trying anything and continuing with the shutdown was harming the interest of their constituencies more than what they had initially thought of, and the negotiations could not continue on such fraught moments.
Right, so this is the timeline that we are showing you. But again, Jessica, also tell us the key points that still remain in negotiations.
Well, the key demands, as I pointed out, from the Democrats is to extend those Affordable Care Act subsidies, because health insurance costs are going up. The subsidies would expire before this year ends, and that's certainly what the Republicans don't want to do. The Republicans want to give that money, which the Democrats are demanding for health insurance, to average Americans, given the cost of living crisis and also the rising inflation, because of which the American people have been affected in the recent past, and also add to that tariffs that have troubled the common person, the common man in America, and certainly hurting the pockets. But on the other end, there are also contentions, and with US President Donald Trump, giving funds to certain federal agencies, which was earmarked for research and development purposes, and that has been criticized by the lawmakers in America, saying that was abuse of power of the president and not constitutionally valid as well, because there are certain measures and safeguards and checks and balances that prevent the president and the constitutional authorities that be to move around federal funds. So that is one point of contention. But for the Democrats in majority, they are set to oppose the deal that collectively was to ensure that the Democrats, in fact, do tend to get the Affordable Care Act subsidies, but the Republicans certainly do not want that at this point. And that is where it still remains, and more uncertainty surrounds this entire issue that has been faced by America, and the shutdown continues. But with the 60 vote, the Republicans have secured at least a certain momentum in that direction, where we could see an end to a shutdown. But with the Democrats, again, before the vote is taken place, there could be a change, but not much can be said about how all of this is being played out and the kind of negotiations that have been going on. But what you see right now is the Democrat factionalism, which will also further prevent a clear and a hopeful negotiation that would in the end benefit the people of America.
Absolutely. The vote to advance bill passed by a 60-40 margin, and next few days, like Jessica said, would be very, very crucial. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for inputs, Jessica. Moving on, India is expanding its partnership with Africa, with President Draupadi Murmu undertaking a 5-day visit to Angola and Botswana, the first ever visit by an Indian head of state to these two nations. The president arrived in Angolan capital, Luanda, on Sunday in the first leg of a historic visit, focusing on strengthening cooperation in defense, agriculture, energy, pharmaceuticals and space technology. DD India correspondent Dibyendu Mondal reports from there.
Well, President Draupadi Murmu is in a two-nation tour of Africa. Of course, today is her third day in Luanda in Angola. She arrived here on the 8th late in the evening. And yesterday she received the Guard of Honor, and today's, of course, the schedule looks like she will be addressing the National Assembly of Angola, which is in the capital city of Luanda. This is perhaps the first ever visit by a head of a state of India to this part of Africa. And of course, this is the first head of the state visit from India to Angola. She will be meeting with the Speaker of the National Assembly of Angola. She will also be addressing the members of the National Assembly. And National Assembly is equivalent to the Indian Parliament. She will be giving a speech, delivering a speech to all the members of the National Assembly. And apart from that, tomorrow, in fact, she will be departing from Angola. But remember, the high-level delegation level talks that happened yesterday at the presidential palace marks a new beginning in the friendship between Angola and India. Multiple MOUs have been exchanged between both the countries with respect to fisheries, agriculture, marine and aquaculture, and of course, cooperation in the consular service sector has been already signed as part of the delegation that has come with the President of India. So of course, this is going to improve the ties between India and Angola. And of course, India has been a voice of the global south, and India has of course always supported the cause of the African Union. India was, remember, the first country to propose and also bring African Union as part of the permanent member of G20. So of course, this visit is going to bring a paradigm shift in how Angola and India's friendship was written. But also remember that she will be taking part in the 50th anniversary of the Independence Day celebration here in Luanda. This also marks the 40 years of diplomatic relation between both India and Angola. And this visit, remember, marks a new beginning, as I said, between both Angola and India. And not just this, it also opens up avenues for cooperation in sectors like energy, pharma, defense, aviation and other sectors as well. So of course, this visit is going to go down in history as one of the most successful visits by the Indian head of state, because not just cooperation in multiple sectors, but also the deepening ties and people-to-people ties between the people of Angola and also the large Indian diaspora here in Angola.
That was reporter Dipendu reporting from Angola. Moving on, a special Buddhist festival is underway in Bhutan. It's called Global Peace Prayer Festival. It brings together followers of Buddhism from all over the world to pray for peace and harmony. Making this occasion special are sacred Buddhist relics from India that are on public exposition in Thimphu. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating in the Global Peace Prayer Festival during his upcoming visit to Bhutan.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Thimphu, India-Bhutan spiritual connection will also be in focus. We are at the Global Peace Prayer Festival here in Thimphu. It's a historic gathering of Buddhist leaders, peace advocates from around the world. Prime Minister would be participating in these festivities. Also making the occasion special are sacred Buddhist relics that have been brought from Delhi to Thimphu for a public exposition.
Atmosphere reverberating with Buddhist chants, prayer flags waving in the wind, and gathering of followers as far as the eye can see. In a world increasingly characterized by conflict, polarization and discord, a transformative spiritual gathering is taking place in Thimphu. The Global Peace Prayer Festival brings together an unparalleled assembly of eminent lamas from all schools of Buddhism within Bhutan and beyond, uniting their voices for the healing of humanity. The Global Peace Prayer Festival is taking place from 4th to 19th November. It coincides with the 70th birth anniversary of the 4th King of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk.
This festival means to be a world peace festival for us, and it is a Buddhist festival between India and Bhutan. And we are very excited to see Prime Minister Modi here in Bhutan.
This event is especially for the spreading of Buddhism all over the world and showing how our Buddhism is true. And we welcome Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, to Bhutan.
As a symbol of shared Buddhist heritage, sacred relics of Lord Buddha from India are on public exposition in Thimphu during the Global Peace Prayer Festival. Earlier, a high-level delegation led by Union Minister Viren Kumar carried the sacred relics to Bhutan. The sacred Piparawa relics of Lord Buddha are amongst the most venerated objects in Buddhism. In a post on X, PM Modi expressed heartfelt appreciation to the people and leadership of Bhutan for the reverent welcome accorded to the sacred relics of Lord Buddha from India. His Bhutanese counterpart, Shering Topge, thanked India for allowing the sacred relics to be brought to Thimphu. During the upcoming visit to Bhutan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the Global Peace Prayer Festival and offer prayers to the holy relics in Thimphu. Presence of sacred relics from India and Prime Minister's visit are expected to reinvigorate the spiritual and cultural connect between India and the Himalayan kingdom. With camera person Saurabh, Shubhendu Ghosh, DD India, Thimphu.
All right, we'll go across to Thimphu, Bhutan now. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh joins us from there. Hi, Shubhendu. First of all, tell us how crucial is this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Bhutan and what will be the agenda?
Hello, Abhishek. Well, Bhutan is one of the closest neighbors of India, not just geographically, but for the ties that we share, civilizational ties which have been further taken forward with modern development partnership. We just told our viewers about the special Buddhist festival, which is underway in Bhutan, in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi would also be participating. The presence of sacred Buddhist relics from India make the occasion all the more special. But the focus would also be on the development partnership in the manner in which it will be taken forward. There is a prospect for the inauguration of a mega hydropower project, this P2 hydropower project, with a capacity of over 1,000 megawatt, which is going to be transformative for the infrastructure development of Bhutan. It has been developed with partnership between India and Bhutan, and it's a symbiotic relationship. India helps develop these very crucial infrastructure for Bhutan, and the electricity that is generated is then also some of it is received by India, and the revenue that is generated is one of the highest for any sectors as far as Bhutan is concerned. So there are diverse areas of engagement which are expected to be taken forward during Prime Minister's visit. Another focus area, Abhishek, if I may mention, is the manner in which the capacity building of the youth of Bhutan. Here, the Prime Minister of the kingdom had mentioned about skill development being a concern, finding a job here in the kingdom, in Bhutan, and stopping the emigration of youth, young people moving away from Bhutan, going to other countries to find a job. So India is playing a crucial role in capacity building, not just in skill training, but creating new modern job opportunities for the youth here in the kingdom.
Shubhendu, also PM Modi expressed appreciation for the people and leadership of Bhutan for the welcome accorded to the holy relics of Lord Buddha from India. And this visit also coincides with the exposition of the sacred Peprava relics of Lord Buddha from India. Tell us, Shubhendu, I mean, how are these cultural and spiritual engagements really contributing to the broader India-Bhutan relationship?
That's right, Abhishek. The shared heritage of Buddhism is a very important connecting factor for the peoples of India as well as Bhutan. It's a common
sacred relics of Lord Buddha from India are on public exposition in Thimphu during the Global Peace Prayer Festival.
Prime Minister. And if you look at the manner in which these relics are also being taken to Bhutan from India, these represents in many ways for the followers a real physical manifestation of Lord Buddha, making the occasion all the more special. So in that sense, the connectedness that the peoples of the two countries feel, Buddhism has a very important role to play. And when Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in these festivities, it is going to be another milestone for the close ties between India and Bhutan.
All right, Shubhendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs from Bhutan. India's Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Dr. Virendra Kumar, met Bhutan's Home Minister Sharing in Thimphu. During the meeting, both leaders discussed important matters related to social welfare, including initiatives for the elderly and specially abled individuals. The interaction provided an opportunity for meaningful discussions and experience sharing on social empowerment and welfare initiatives between the two nations. Still to come on this edition of DD India Newshour. BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO Deborah Turness resign after criticism of Trump documentary edit. Trump calls the edit a terrible thing for democracy. Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara to meet US President Donald Trump at the White House. Sarkozy request to be freed from jail pending appeal goes to court.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? the Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. We read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. BBC's Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turnus have stepped down after mounting criticism over political bias, including claims of editing a Donald Trump speech that misrepresented his words, as questions rise over editorial integrity and impartiality on several key subjects. Britain's public broadcaster faces one of its biggest credibility tests in years.
In an unprecedented move, the Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation, Tim Davie, and the Chief Executive of News, Deborah Turnus, have resigned following criticism over bias at the corporation. The move follows allegations that the BBC failed to maintain political neutrality in its coverage of US President Donald Trump. The resignation came after a Daily Telegraph report this week revealed that concerns over BBC's impartiality were first raised in the summer through a memo by Michael Prescott, who is a former external advisor to the BBC's Editorial Standards Committee. The leaked internal report, later detailed by Telegraph, cited multiple editorial errors and accused the broadcaster's flagship Panorama program of editing two parts of Donald Trump's January 6, 2021 speech together, creating the impression that he had encouraged the Capitol Hill riots. Experts believe the organization was slow to respond after Telegraph's story made a serious dent on its image and credibility.
We don't know yet what happened within the labyrinthine committee meetings and discussions in the BBC, but the BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed for 3 or 4 days when the story broke about the Michael Prescott dossier.
Following the Telegraph's publication, the White House had condemned the broadcaster as a propaganda machine, intensifying pressure on its leadership. US President Donald Trump welcomed the resignations on his Truth Social platform. Meanwhile, Israel also accused BBC of a deep-seated bias, citing its coverage, and accused the channel of spreading disinformation that fuels anti-Semitism. The leaked internal report also said that the BBC Arabic channel had shown anti-Israel bias in its reporting of war in Gaza. BBC had to issue several apologies for serious flaws in the making of documentary on Gaza conflict earlier this year. The documentary was aired in February. BBC Chairman Samir Shah announced the resignations and praised both for their leadership and service. BBC in recent years has been accused of failing to maintain its commitment to impartial news by critics on both sides of the political divide. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara is to meet US President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday for unprecedented talks, just days after Washington removed him from a terrorism blacklist. Shara, whose rebel forces ousted longtime ruler Bashar al-Assad late last year, will be the first Syrian leader to visit the White House since the country's independence in 1946. The interim president met Trump for the first time in Saudi Arabia during the US leader's regional tour in May. After his arrival in Washington, Shara over the weekend met with IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva over possible aid for the war-wrecked country and with representatives from Syrian organizations. Now, the Paris Criminal Court of Appeals will hold a hearing on Monday to tackle a request by former French President Nicolas Sarkozy for an early release from jail pending his appeals trial. Last October, Sarkozy began his 5-year sentence for conspiring to raise campaigning funds from Libya. He is incarcerated at La Sainte prison in Paris. If the court grants the early release request, Sarkozy could be freed and made to wear an electronic device or be submitted to a strict judiciary control or pay a fine. Sarkozy, who led France between 2007 and 2012, is the first former French leader to be jailed since Nazi collaborator Marshal Philippe Pétain after World War II. Sarkozy has always said he was innocent and has appealed his conviction. Now, South Korea's special prosecutor has indicted former President Yoon Suk-yeol on additional charges of abusing power and aiding an enemy state, North Korea. According to the Yonhap news agency, a special counsel team also charged Yoon with abuse of power in connection with the order which was allegedly given to provoke the North's retaliation and use it as a pretext for his declaration of martial law in December. Super Typhoon Fung Wong made landfall in Philippines on Sunday with 2 fatalities reported and over 1 million people evacuated ahead of one of the nation's most powerful storms this year. Eyewitness video showed massive waves rising and crashing along the Catanduanes coastline, bringing floodwaters gushing into the strait. The storm crossed over the north of archipelago's most populous island, Luzon, with torrential rain sustained strong winds. And it was the 21st storm this year to hit a nation only just recovering from Typhoon Kalmegi, which left 224 dead in the Philippines and 5 in Vietnam. While it is not straightforward to attribute a single weather event to climate change, scientists say that in principle, warmer sea surface temperatures speed up the evaporation process and pack more fuel into tropical cyclones. Scientists further warn that such extreme events can only become more frequent as global temperatures rise. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Toronto welcomed its first snowfall of the season on Sunday, blanketing the city's landmarks in white. Residents and tourists enjoyed the early winter charm, while Environment Canada warned of slick roads and transit delays with up to 10 centimeters of snow expected. Protests in Benin City have halted the planned opening of Nigeria's new Museum of West African Arts. Demonstrators believed to represent the Oba's Palace disrupted a private tour, claiming the traditional ruler should oversee the museum. Dog lovers in Nairobi gathered for the colourful Pavshela dog show, where pets strutted in fancy costumes. The event featured contests for the shaggiest dog and best owner dog duo, celebrating the bond between humans and their furry friends. And Paris marked the 10th anniversary of the November 13 attacks with a run for freedom and an equality march. Thousands joined to honor victims and show unity. Organizers also said the best response to terrorism is standing together and celebrating freedom. All right, still to come on this edition of the India Newshour. COP30 starts today. We'll get you details of India's stance and achievements. And Bihar preps up for the second phase of the polls tomorrow. India and China resume commercial flights. Direct flight from New Delhi to Shanghai landed early on Monday.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls' pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. End of shutdown in sight as Senate advances the bill after 40 days of stalemate. Bill to fund government through January 2026 and includes 3 appropriation measures. In a major breakthrough under anti-terror operation, J&K and Haryana police recover suspected explosives, arms in a joint operation. India-Angola pledged to deepen bilateral ties, agree on cooperation in marine resources. President Murmu to address Parliament and also interact with the Indian community. COP30 begins in Brazil's Belém on Monday with focus on turning climate talk into measurable action. Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav represents India. In sports, shooter Anish Bhanwala creates history, becomes first Indian to ever win a medal in men's 25-meter rapid-fire event at World Championships with a silver in the finals at Cairo. The United Nations 30th Conference of Parties COP30 begins in Belém, Brazil on Monday. It marks a decade since the Paris Climate Pact came into force. A lot has changed since the landmark treaty was adopted, and at the same time, the needle hasn't moved much on several long-standing climate issues. Indigenous leaders from ANS arrived in Belém to attend the COP30 Climate Summit. Their main goal was demanding a greater say in how their territories are managed as climate change escalates and industries including mining, oil drilling and logging press deeper into forests. In the run-up to COP30, more than 60 countries have submitted revised climate action plans. However, by all accounts, collective ambition will not be enough to keep global warming below the threshold set at Paris. And Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav is representing India at COP30. India will highlight its clean energy progress, having reached its 50% non-fossil power target ahead of schedule while pushing for practical adaptation indicators. Earlier, reaffirming its commitment to multilateralism and towards preserving and safeguarding the architecture of Paris Agreement, India called on all nations to ensure that the next decade of climate action is defined not only by targets but by implementation, resilience and shared responsibility based on mutual trust and fairness. During the 12-day-long conference, talks will focus on implementing the Paris Agreement, climate finance and adaptation plans as countries move from promises to action. This is the first COP where the full Paris policy cycle is in effect. And every year, COP summit generates hundreds of headlines on global climate action. This year's begins on Monday in the Brazilian rainforest city of Belém. But what exactly happens at the annual UN Climate Conference? Here's what you need to know.
The annual conference on climate is known as a COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties that signed the 1992 UN Climate Treaty. The treaty, called the UN Framework on Climate Change Convention or UNFCCC, committed countries to working together to fight climate change, a problem they acknowledged all countries faced and was best tackled together. The treaty also established the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, meaning the rich countries responsible for most of the planet warming emissions bear a greater responsibility in solving the problem. One of the priorities at COP30 will be to create a roadmap to track global adaptation progress. The roadmap will also need to be sensitive to the fact that social inequalities make some people more vulnerable than others. COP30 is focused on implementation, inclusion, and innovation. During the summit's first week, country negotiators will lay out their priorities and gauge one another's positions. Negotiators are joined by national ministers during the second week to haggle over final decisions, including legal and technical details. For many, this year's 30th Climate Summit marks as a full circle moment. Brazil had hosted the Rio Earth Summit, where the UNFCCC, or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Treaty, was signed 33 years ago. Central to Brazil's climate finance agenda is the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, a performance based fund aiming to mobilize $4 billion annually to reward countries for conserving tropical forests. This year, the country insisted the event would return to its roots in acknowledging the world's most vulnerable, including indigenous groups, with some joining the talks. Brazil has asked the countries to work on realizing past promises, such as COP28 pledges to phase out fossil fuel use rather than making new ones. COP30 is also the first to acknowledge failure in meeting the past goal of preventing warming above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Most national governments send teams to the talks. Often, countries speak together in groups with similar interests. Some of the most prominent voices include the Alliance of Small Island States facing an existential threat from rising seas, and the G77 plus bloc of developing countries, including Africa Group and the BASIC Group consisting of Brazil, South Africa, India, and China. On the first day of his second term, US President Trump signed another executive order to withdraw the US from the agreement for a second time, but officially US is set to exit the Paris Treaty in January 2026. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
All right, and to talk more on this, we are joined by Aparna Roy, Fellow in Lead Climate Change and Energy, ORF. Hi Aparna, appreciate you giving us your precious time. Aparna, with the world now all set for COP30, eyes are on Belém. How would you assess the global expectations from this conference?
Thank you, Abhishek, very much for having me here at the right time, especially as I'm just about to leave for Brazil.
Okay.
On your question on how do I assess the global expectations from this conference, I think COP30 for all of us is being seen globally as a make or break moment. It is the first time that the world meets the major forest nations since the Paris Agreement to assess not just promises that we made a decade ago, but to also look at the delivery, or to rather question the delivery. The expectations are high, but also grounded in realism. There are three things that I would want to circle that the world is watching for in the COP30. First would be new and more ambitious climate pledges, because the next round of nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, that countries must submit in 2025 is, we are on the year already, that's going to end. And the goal is to ensure that these are aligned with the 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway that we are looking for to halt or stall the global warming. But the current trajectories, as we all know, and as you have reported already, according to the UN's only latest synthesis report, says that we would still take around 2.5 to 2.8 degrees of warming by the end of the century. So there is a clear gap between where we are and where the science says that we need to be. Second is that there is expectation on finance and equity, because especially for adaptation and loss on damage, the vulnerable nations want to see not just new pledges, but they want to see practical pathways for money to flow faster to communities that are already suffering climate impacts and are at the front line of the crisis. And the third and last is because COP30 is hosted in Brazil, and there is a strong focus on forests, nature, and the Amazon. The proposed tropical forest forever, which is the facility, is expected to bring together international partners to fund protection of the world's largest carbon sink, which would also help us naturally, store or go beyond the other pathways to rely on more conventional pathways to reduce the carbon emission. So yeah. Overall, the expectation for this COP is not just around the round of broad declarations and arguing paragraphs after paragraphs on agreement. Is it about converting intent into investment and pledges into pipelines, and most so ambition into action?
Aparna, also, talking about India particularly, India has achieved the milestone of 50% non-fossil power capacity ahead of the schedule. How big is that, and how do you think it is? This is being viewed internationally, globally?
Abhishek, so I think the milestone is and should be viewed very, very positively across the international community, because it signals that India is not just making promises, it is also delivering ahead of time. And it's not just this time. Since last many years we have been reading that it was the front runner among major G20 countries which were responsible together for 82% of the world's emission. It was already at the front runner of arresting climate change and making efforts to mitigate its impact. So India had, if you go back to COP26, we have pledged to achieve 50% of its installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel sources by 2030, and we are already there with over 190 gigawatts of renewable capacity installed out of around 425 gigawatts total. So this makes India one of the fastest growing renewable energy markets in the world, and a country that has expanded clean energy access without compromising growth, very important to note, or energy security. So internationally, I think it's seen as a demonstration of what an emerging economy can do with the right policy consistency, domestic investment, and technological partnerships. And of course, observers are also pointing to the next phase of challenges, which is that India's electricity demand is rising sharply. Our coal still supplies around 70% of actual generation, and integrating intermittent renewables requires large investments, especially in storage, grid modernization, and green hydrogen. But I think the direction of travel that we have taken is very clear. We are decarbonizing without deindustrializing, and that's why the progress is viewed globally as a model for an inclusive, just, and scalable energy transition, especially for countries of global south who are in the same growth trajectory.
Aparna, also looking ahead, what would you consider a realistic and meaningful outcome from COP30, one that would signal progress without raising expectations beyond what is achievable?
Yes, so I would define the success for COP30 as moving on from processes to progress. I think a realistic and meaningful outcome would be threefold. The first, I think, is a clear roadmap for enhanced NDCs, like I said before, that are aligned with 1.5 degree pathway and include actionable sectoral pathways, not just aggregate number. This means that every major economy signaling how it will peak, reduce, and transition by 2035, which we are very close to. Second, I think credible financial package that includes operationalizing the new post-2025 climate finance goal, ensuring the loss and damage fund becomes fully capitalized, and launching the fast start funding for the Tropical Forest Forever initiative in the Amazon region. And third would be the focus on implementation mechanism. Whether it's a new framework for subnational cooperation, a global clean cooling initiative, or accelerated phase down of super pollutants like methane, I think the goal should be to bring tangible action that can show results before 2030. And ultimately, I think that the world doesn't need another declaration of intent. It needs a delivery plan. So one that is fair to developing economy, which is science-based in ambition and rooted in partnership rather than a polarity. So if COP30 achieves that balance, I think it will mark a real turning point in this decade of action.
Absolutely, and next few days will be very crucial. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your insights, Aparna Roy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on, marking a significant step in deepening the India-Saudi Arabia ties, two sides signed the bilateral Hajj agreement for Hajj 2026 in Jeddah. The agreement was signed after a bilateral meeting was held between Minority Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju and Saudi's Minister of Hajj Tawfiq bin Fawzan Al Rabia. With the agreement, Hajj quota of 1,75,025 has been secured for Indian pilgrims for 2026. During the meeting, both ministers reviewed the ongoing Hajj preparations and discussed measures to enhance coordination and logistical support. They also reaffirmed their shared commitment to ensure safe, seamless, and spiritually fulfilling journey for all Hajj pilgrims. Now, the 5th edition of the Sheikh Zayed Festival is underway at Al Watba in Abu Dhabi. It opened on 1st November and will run till 22nd March 2026 under the theme Hayakum, celebrating the legacy of Sheikh Zayed with cultural shows, heritage displays and international participation. The festival includes more than 4,000 events, 750 big performances and pavilions from 22 countries. A Kashmiri shopkeeper here says he has been participating for 8 years selling Kashmiri shawls. This festival connects people and cultures like a global village.
My name is Yasir Koyum and I'm from Kashmir, India, and I'm participating in Sheikh Zayed Heritage Festival. So I'm participating from last 8 years. So this is the Indian pavilion here. So I'm participating and I have a lot of items here. I'm from Kashmir and I'm selling the Kashmiri items like gatra, like shawls. And about Sheikh Zayed Heritage Festival, it's connecting the people, different cultures, like a global village, and it's booming year to year. And what we call, and I'm happy to do business here. Thank you so much.
In a major breakthrough under anti-terror operation, Jammu and Kashmir Police and Haryana Police have recovered 360 kg of possible ammonium nitrate from the house of a doctor in Haryana's Faridabad on Monday. Besides timers with batteries, arms, ammunitions, including assault rifle and walkie-talkie, were also recovered. According to officials, the recovery was made during a raid at Al Falah Hospital in Faridabad based on information provided by Dr. Adil Ahmed during interrogation. Another doctor, Dr. Muzammil Shakil, who was employed at the hospital, has also been arrested in connection with the case. The joint operation between Haryana Police and J&K Police is still underway. Direct flight from New Delhi to Shanghai landed early on Monday as India and China resume commercial flights. Consul General Prateek Mathur received the first set of passengers at the Shanghai Pudong International Airport. The flight, which left Delhi on Sunday evening, comes days after Indigo's flight to Guangzhou from Kolkata. The development marks the resumption of the flight services between the two countries after a gap of 5 years. Consulate General of India in Shanghai has said that with this, India is emerging as a global hub as people-to-people ties grow stronger. You're watching DD India Newshour. Time now for some sports updates. India's Anish Bhanwala delivered a career-defining performance at the ISSF World Championships in Cairo, clinching silver in the 25-meter rapid-fire pistol finals. The 23-year-old from Haryana showed remarkable composure, surviving a tense shoot-off for bronze before outlasting Ukraine's Maxim Horodinets to secure second place with a score of 28. Overcoming the disappointment of missing out at the Paris 2024 Olympics, Bhanwala's resilience and precision marked his biggest international medal yet in a fiercely contested final. And India made an impressive start at the Asian Archery Championship in Bangladesh, with Yashdeep Sanjay Bhoge and Deepshika emerging as standout performers in the qualification rounds. In the recurve men's category, Bhoge showcased remarkable precision and consistency, finishing at the top of the leaderboard with a commanding score of 687 points. In contrast, the recurve women's section was dominated by Korean archers. India's seasoned archer Deepika Kumari secured 12th position. In the compound events, Deepshika excelled in women's qualification round, registering an impressive 705 points to finish first among the Asian archers. In the compound men's qualification, India's experienced archer Abhishek Verma was at the second place with 712 points. The strong performances by Indian archers on the opening day have raised the medal hopes. Cricket now. Batter Akash Kumar Chaudhary has become the first player to smash 8 successive sixes in India's first-class cricket and also raced to the fastest half-century. Chaudhary, who plays for the northeast state of Meghalaya, achieved the milestone during a Ranji Trophy match against Arunachal Pradesh on Sunday. The records were particularly impressive considering the 25-year-old is usually considered to be a fast bowler. On the second day of the domestic match in Surat, Chaudhary belted 6 sixes off left-arm spinner Limar Dabi. He then cleared the boundary with the next 2 deliveries he faced to reach 50 runs in just 11 balls, breaking the previous record by 1 ball. Earlier, Gary Sobers and Ravi Shastri have hit 6 sixes in a single over. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.